The jungle doesn't echo like a canyon or cave. It absorbs, it muffles, it hides. When Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon set out for a hike in the Panamanian rainforest, they didn't know they were walking into one of the most disturbing mysteries the internet would ever inherit. It was April 1st, 2014, a Tuesday. The two Dutch students, both in their early 20s, had been staying in the small mountain town of Boquete. Known for its scenic views and peaceful trails, Boquete sits right near the edge of a vast and unforgiving rainforest. The trail they chose, the Pianista Trail, was popular, quiet, but not isolated, lush with ferns, winding paths, and thick canopies overhead. They left with light day packs, one camera, two phones, and barely enough food or water for a short hike. They smiled for pictures at the beginning of the trail. Casual selfies, arms around each other, tropical leaves in the background. Nothing about the photos felt final. They never came back. By nightfall, no one had seen or heard from them. Not the host family, not the guide who was scheduled to take them on a full tour the next morning, not the friends they'd made in town. At first, people assumed they'd just taken a wrong turn. The Pianista Trail had side routes, some of which were steep or overgrown, not dangerous, just confusing for tourists. But by the next morning, when they still hadn't returned, local search teams began fanning out across the area. 2 days passed, then 5, then a week. Helicopters were deployed, dogs were used, indigenous guides who knew every inch of the jungle went out, day after day. Nothing. Then, 10 days after their disappearance, one of the girls' phones began placing 911 calls, with no service. The first came on April 2nd at 4:39 p.m. Then again, and again. Dozens of attempted emergency calls were logged. None went through. Some came from Kris's phone, some from Lisanne's, but eventually, only one phone was being used. And eventually, even that one went silent. Whatever happened to them? It didn't happen quickly. It wasn't until over 2 months later, on June 14th, that something surfaced. A local woman from the Alto Romero area, a remote indigenous village far beyond where most hikers go, turned in a blue backpack she said she found near the edge of a riverbank. It had no dirt on it, no signs of damage, no mold despite the rain and jungle moisture. It looked placed. Inside was a water bottle, 2 pairs of sunglasses, $83 in cash, Lisanne's passport, 2 bras, a camera, and both girls' phones. The items were dry, untouched. The camera still worked. So did the phones. That backpack changed everything. Investigators immediately pulled the data from both phones. What they found painted a timeline. Not complete, but chilling. April 1st, 2014. The day of the hike. Photos show the girls smiling near a jungle overlook. Lisanne takes a shot of Kris from behind, arms outstretched toward the trees. There's a timestamp of around 1 p.m., and then suddenly, no more images for hours. Later that afternoon, the first failed emergency calls are made. April 5th, 4 days later. Lisanne's phone dies. From that point forward, Kris's phone is used repeatedly to check for signal, to try emergency numbers, to unlock. But at some point, even Kris's phone becomes unusable. The final activity logged on either device? April 11th, 10 days after they vanished. That's when the camera came into focus. That's when things got worse. There were over 130 photos on the camera. Most of them were normal, taken during the early hours of the hike. Bright daylight, playful smiles, nature shots. But then came the night. Starting at 1 a.m. on April 8th, nearly a week after they had disappeared, 90 photos were taken in complete darkness. Flash after flash after flash. Trees, rocks, mossy jungle floor, blackness. Then, a strange piece of plastic, carefully arranged with sticks. In one image, what appears to be Kris's hair, long red strands, visible behind a boulder. In another, a blurred shape that some interpret as blood or flesh. And one photo, the most infamous, shows the back of Lisanne's head, partially obscured, as if the photo was taken by someone else, or by accident. Many believe these weren't just attempts to light their way. They were messages. They were proof. The timing of the night photos is disturbing. By that point, one girl may have already been dead. Some speculate Lisanne was still alive, trying to use the flash to signal help. Others believe someone else had the camera. Someone was staging something, documenting something. But none of the photos were deleted. They weren't edited. They were just there, waiting to be found. Then came the fragments. A few weeks after the backpack was discovered, bone fragments were found scattered along the same riverbank. Lisanne's left foot, still in her boot, intact. Kris's pelvic bone, clean and bleached. DNA confirmed both, but the decomposition didn't match the timeline. One body showed signs of rapid breakdown. The other looked like it had been preserved. And all of it felt too spread out, too clean, too intentional. Theories began to spiral. Some said it was a tragic accident. The girls slipped, one was injured, and the other tried to survive alone before succumbing to the jungle. The terrain past the Pianista Trail is steep, muddy, and confusing. Getting lost wasn't hard, especially without food or gear. But that theory didn't explain the night photos, or the carefully placed backpack, untouched by water or animals, or the way the phones were handled. Someone tried entering the wrong pin on Kris's phone dozens of times after Lisanne's died. Someone who didn't know the code. Then there were the locals, who claimed to have heard screams in the hills, and the indigenous guides who refused to search a particular area of the forest, out of superstition. A local family whispered that the area was known for disappearances, that people had gone missing in that stretch of jungle before, that the forest didn't take people randomly, it took them on purpose. Others pushed darker theories, organized crime, human trafficking, occult involvement, a ritual gone wrong, even stories of jungle spirits, guardians of the forest who punished outsiders that crossed certain invisible lines, but nothing was ever proven. The Panamanian authorities quietly closed the case, calling it an accident. No follow-up, no charges, no official acknowledgement of the strange inconsistencies. To this day, the only things left behind are a blue backpack, a camera full of questions, and a pair of girls who smiled into the jungle and disappeared.
The internet didn't forget. In the years that followed, Kris and Lisanne's story exploded across forums, YouTube channels, podcasts, and deep dive threads. People analyzed every single photo, adjusting brightness, isolating shadows, enhancing backgrounds, looking for reflections in their eyes, hidden figures in the trees, possible second light sources. But it always came back to the same question. Why were they still alive a week later? And if they were, what were they running from? The photos weren't spaced evenly. Some were taken seconds apart, others minutes. One in particular, photo 509, was missing, completely gone, deleted from the card, not corrupted, manually removed. It would have fallen between the daylight hike shots and the first night photos, the photo that may have captured the moment everything changed. But it's gone, gone forever. That single missing file turned an unsolved tragedy into something colder, something darker, and, for many, something deliberately erased. In 2016, a private Dutch forensic team re-examined the camera and phone data. They confirmed the photo gap, confirmed the deletion couldn't have happened from natural causes or camera malfunction. Someone pressed the delete button, but no one knows who or why. The Panamanian government refused to reopen the investigation, and the families were left with half-truths, fragments, and endless what-ifs. The jungle, meanwhile, remains the same. Still dense, still quiet, still watching. In the years since Kris and Lisanne vanished, the Pianista Trail has become a different kind of landmark, not a tourist path, not a quiet jungle walk, a haunted breadcrumb line. People still visit, some to pay respects, others to chase the mystery, but no one goes unprepared anymore. No one walks it without thinking of the photos, or the silence that followed them. The final images on that camera are still publicly available. You can look at them yourself. Flashlit leaves, blurry soil, a hanging strap, hair caught on rock. None of them answer anything. And that's the part that won't let this case rest. Kris Kremers was 21. Lisanne Froon was 22. They were smart, kind, brave enough to cross an ocean and explore a new part of the world. But something, someone, somewhere, didn't let them leave. Whether it was misfortune or something more deliberate, this case is still missing its final chapter, and until then, it remains filed under fear.